I would be in big trouble if I did not mention that Stoughton Village Players will be performing Twelfth Night, the musical, November 9th through 12 and 17 through 19 at the Stoughton Village Players Theater. Stop by and see us. Well, howdy, 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 and welcome to Cast Party Community Theater Unmasked. This is the YouTube channel where we discuss issues, topics, and ideas for and also with small town theater groups. Today's topic is a hot one. It is production team roles, responsibilities, and titles. I know that sometimes it's not an issue at all, and it just goes smoothly, and other times it can be very controversial and time-consuming. So we'll talk about that. Before we introduce our illustrious panel, there's my illustrious panel there. I want to remind everyone watching that this is not live. It was recorded earlier, but we still love your input. So please chat back in the comments, and we'll try to respond to you, because this is all about sharing, right? So let's meet today's panelists. Paul, you want to start?
Hi, I'm Paul Wydeven. I'm the Vice President of the Fort Atkinson Community Theater. I've been on the board for 6 years now, and we just had our election. We had our roles, so happy to share that as the conversation goes on. And Fort Atkinson's a community of about 12,500 people, according to Google. So we also do summer musicals, our big show. We do a kids show in the spring generally, and there's a spin-off group called The Matter of Fact, and they sing, and then they do a readers theater, which is it is what it says, and we do that once a year. We may have two of them if time presents, and then other miscellaneous things as opportunities come about in the Fort Atkinson area.
So Fort Atkinson Community Theater, Fact, and then they have this, A Matter of Fact, is the spin-off group.
Yeah, they're a singing group. They
yeah.
The Christmas
I was just
caroling.
pointing that out so people got the pun in there. So
Oh,
I like it. Great,
oh,
Sarah.
and it's been around since 1962. One of the oldest community theaters in Wisconsin.
Yeah. We had our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. We thought we were a big deal, and one of our people is from Janesville Little Theater. Their anniversary next year, 95.
Nice.
Wow.
So I shut my mouth after that. Sarah, let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Sara Ward-Cassady. I am the Vice President of the board for Verona Area Community Theater. Verona is a town of about 14,000 people, again, according to Google. The illustrious Google has told me that. And VACT's been around since 1992. We do about 10 productions a year. 4 of those productions, well, 2 of them are for 2nd through 5th graders, 2 are for 6th through 8th graders. Then we do 1 high school production a year, so that's 5 of our 10. And then we do 3 big musicals a year, 1 play, and we also do a senior production, as in a cast of 55 and older. So I think that gets me up to 10. So we have a kind of a wide range of shows that we do.
You do, and you must have a very large membership to do all that.
You'd think that was true, but I don't know that it's any larger than anyone else's. I think we just have some people who have kind of become pretty dedicated to certain areas and sort of keep it going. But yeah, it definitely, we have some passionate people about particular projects.
So it just struck me, there's FACT and VACT, and I was trying to get the Portage Area Community Theater here just to complete it, but no such luck. So so here's, again, my name's Dan Pruer. I have been on the board for 20 years at Stoughton Village Players, and we started this a couple of months ago. So here we are in episode 3. So here's some of the topic areas that we hope to cover in the episode. Do you have a set team of production folks, or does that change each time, or is there a percentage that of each? Do directors bring their own people? Do they encourage that? What is the most difficult position to staff? I know my answer. Do you ever split roles so that more than one person shares that role? Another one, I do lights one weekend, you do lights the next weekend, that kind of thing. Do you always have someone call the show? Do you always have someone there who's on a headset, either in the booth or somewhere, calling the show? I want to get into some titles. What are some of the key positions called? I know I've gone to shows and I've seen somebody put a position, the title down, and go, "Oh, that's a really great call. I would never have used that term before." What does a stage manager do? And any titles you use or titles you've seen, have you had any issues of that kind of thing? So those are just some things that get us thinking. And so let's just start wherever we feel like starting. Sarah, you want to start us out?
Well, let's start with something that we had, we're sort of is happening right now. So when we solicit for directors, we have an application, and we list all the different positions that that you generally would need to run a show, lights and sound and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person who's applying to be the director can put down, yep, here's the people that I'd like to work on those things, or nope, I don't have any of those people, so I'm hoping you can help me round that out. So a lot of times our directors are people who've worked with us quite a bit before, and so it's a lot of the same people who are filling those roles. But the director that we have now, it's his first time directing for us, and he brought most of his own team, which
Wow.
was really, I mean, it was great. I think it's great. I hope it's going to be great. I think it's really nice, particularly for us. We have a lighting person who does our lighting for almost all our shows, and he's incredibly talented, but he deserves a break. And so
Yeah.
this director brought his own lighting designer, which is really great. So I hope that it opens up some new opportunities for people. So we typically have a lot of the same people doing a lot of the same things, but for this person, he brought his own staff. So that's new for us.
But I know you have your own black box theater in your building, and then you have the high school performing arts center, or not, the middle school, or wherever you do them.
Yeah, both the high school and the middle school,
Okay.
whatever. We're at the mercy of the availability of the school district. So if it's available, then we try to rent it.
You rent it, but then do they have people there that run things, or do you have to bring your own people to run things there?
Bring your own people. Yeah, we bring
Okay.
our own people.
Okay. Okay. Paul, you want to pick up on that? Let's just keep going.
Yeah, so our shows, we start looking for a director. And that part of that initial conversation is, what do you need? What do because they may generally have like a stage manager in mind, but help with lights and sound is something that they always look forward to. And depending on the venue, we been doing a lot of them at the Fort Atkinson High School. This year we had a change of venue, went to the Jefferson High School, which was a little different theater, and it was more favorable for us to put on the show there. It went very well. And we actually had one of our former officers from FACT come from Minnesota, and which was really nice because a couple of years ago we had to pay somebody to do the light. I think
You did.
Yes, because they can get quite elaborate. Before COVID, we had a pit, and after COVID, we canned music. I don't know if we'll have a pit again. We're having that conversation of who's available and what's available, because 2020 really kind of put a hold on theater, and it's like now we're putting things back together, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same.
Sure.
But it really is up to the director who they bring, and we what do you need supports? We have a props person. We made the decision. We got rid of all our costume shops because we were paying $200+ for heated storage, and we had a donated space, and then we had to move, and we're kind of like, we're going to pay $3,000 a year for storage. or and you can rent it for that. So we are now renting, and
Okay. Well, that's
it washes you the way. So like in Stoughton, you're very fortunate because you have a spot and a person who does a wonderful job.
but
For the shows that I've been in,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
But we struggle with those things as well, Paul.
Yeah,
So I'm
everyone does. But so anyway, I'd say it's pretty much up to the director and that relationship, and then we build off that what's needed. And we do have somebody on our board kind of appointed to take care of sound, lighting, props, costumes.
So, Sarah, do you pay anybody in this production side of things?
We pay music directors and choreographers, and that is it.
And directors?
No directors. We don't pay directors.
You don't pay directors?
Nope.
What?
We do
I'm
not.
astonished.
Yeah.
With
Well,
all the work. Wow.
Yeah. And being that I have directed a lot,
Right.
Some of this that existed before I arrived on the scene. I've been involved at the ACT since about 2015. And my understanding is that was born out of the fact that at one point in time they were having a really hard time finding people to music direct, and had to, much as you said, Paul, had to kind of go outside to try to find somebody.
Yeah.
And that person wanted to be paid. And that something similar might have happened with a choreographer. And when I say pay, let's be clear, it's really more of a stipend. I mean, it's not like
correct.
nobody's getting rich off of this.
Yeah, so per hour.
But I think we have discussions periodically on the board about whether to pay other roles, and have decided that we really want to try to maintain the sort of volunteer aspect of what we do. And I think there are some people who would like to put the genie back in the bottle about paying those other two roles, but that's what we've been doing. But we have a number of people on the board who have a lot of experience with nonprofits who went the other way and started paying everyone, and sort of have some pretty good opinions about kind of what happened when you go that direction.
Right, so exactly. What about I'm sorry, what about musicians?
Yeah, we do pay our pit musicians, again, a pittance, of course, but a stipend. So yes, we do pay our pit musicians, and we've been really lucky to have a fantastic group of people who regularly play for us, and a guy who has taken on the role of sort of the role of recruiting the pit musicians and keeping in touch with them and organizing them. We try to limit their use as much as we can. We have them come in for one orchestra rehearsal and then tech week, and that's it. So, we try to limit their use, but.
Yeah. Well, I think, we do pay directors. And then to be honest, our policy it isn't an automatic policy to pay music directors. Sometimes what we will do is the director says, I will pay them out of my stipend, and they will give them X number of dollars. And so we don't do a musical every year. So it's every other year, I would say, we do a musical. It's not for sure. We don't have a pattern. We just make a decision for 2 years down the road, we're going to do this. So, so I don't think we have a policy except to pay directors. That's the only one for sure that gets paid. Musicians, we fight it. But if you need a stand-up bass, how many people are you going to get to go through, what they have to go through to do it? So, so that's interesting about paying. And Paul, you're the same way with musicians. Do you pay if you have to, or?
Well, I don't know about that, because we don't pay anybody. But generally, there's a gift stipend for director, stage manager, music director.
Oops, stage manager gets a stipend?
A gift, It's
okay. Is it less than $100?
It might be up to $100.
Okay,
I
I'm
think
just trying to get a sense for it because it's never even come up in our discussion. So I'm
you
interested.
know, and being on that stage in Stoughton, it's a smaller stage, so you probably give them half. No,
Right. No small actors, no small
well,
parts.
no,
Okay.
well, yeah, we put 41 people on that stage for
Yeah.
Titanic, so
Yeah, true.
that was
Yeah. Well,
but
yeah, that's
my
interesting.
point is that and a lot of it depends. Hey, we got a great show going here, so the board can be a little more generous at that time.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, by the time it's all said and done, you're lucky you paid for gas and all.
Yeah, of course. We all know per hour it's nothing. Do you always have someone call the show, even if it's a play? Do you have someone there that's what we would call maybe the technical director, someone that's on the headset and
Mhm.
talking to somebody backstage?
That's kind of the stage manager
Is
in Fort.
that's what you would call a stage manager?
Yes,
I'm telling because that is certainly not
the
consistent across
director
anybody.
is like in charge of the people, and then hey, all the little things that need to be done kind of fall on the stage manager. And if they need help, there are people from the more during like the production, the actual like tech week on that from the board we show
To
up
fill it.
what's needed.
Okay.
Because they might be overwhelmed. Hey, this part isn't working for us. Hey, I mean, there isn't a show that I've been in yet that the actors aren't changing the set when the curtains close. And
Sure.
but I mean, the we got the board. They show up, production time, and they fill in the shoes that are need to be filled in.
Got it.
So
Got it. So Sarah, tell me about stage manager and calling the show and all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. This has been something that's come up a lot lately, um, because this person was coming in and bringing their own team, and their definition, the director's definition of a stage manager, was different than what we call a stage manager. So I always say that our stage managers really probably operate more like assistant stage managers, or let's call them stage manager light.
Okay.
Our stage managers usually call the show backstage from the side, from the stage right side, and they'll call the curtain, and they'll call the actors. But our lighting director um, always calls the light cues from the booth, and part of that is because he's just amazing, and so he likes to call the lights, and he does it, and he's good at it. So the stage manager doesn't do as much um of calling the show, or I should say they call the show, but they don't call the light cues.
So they're backstage basically.
Yep, they're backstage, always on stage right. And so in terms of calling the show, it's sort of a group effort between the stage manager and the lighting director when we have our sort of typical cast of characters. I expect that this person who is in there now with his own team, he may handle it differently. We tended to we have a role that we call producer, that has tended to in the past do some of the more rehearsal stage manager kind of stuff, in terms of like checking people in and kind of handling some administrative things. And a lot of times people would prefer to use their stage manager to do that, and to take the blocking notes and all those kinds of things. So I would say our stage manager role is something that whenever somebody comes in and says, I'd like to be a stage manager, I always have to have a conversation about, well, what does that mean to you exactly?
Right.
Because I'll have to, and then we'll have to figure it out from there.
So your sound person does the same as the lights. They kind of call their own business. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So let's just talk about producer for a second. Our producers pretty much do the same thing every time. I always say that for our group, for Stoughton Village Players, the producer is the person who's there to make sure all the teams get put together and that they report at a regular time, meet their deadlines, whatever that means. And he's there to make sure that the vision of the director comes forward. I mean, that's kind of their job. So their job is all about teams to me, team building, team getting the teams together, making sure they're working on a regular basis, that kind of thing. It's a horrible job, to be honest. I have done it many times, and I'm never happy about it. But and our producers all come from the board. It didn't used to be that way, and then we just finally said, it's hard to find them because you have to really be involved with it. And we have a very working board, so it isn't a decision-making board. All 13 people are neck deep in it, and like yours, I'm sure. But their job is to sit down and say, okay, I need to find somebody for lights. I need to have somebody for whatever. And the borderline that you talked about here is who's on the book at every rehearsal, who's taking the notes, who's translating, who's taking notes, so that the director who's talking, he's not only taking blocking notes, but he's taking some notes for the director. He says, make sure we put down this, and this person. That's another really difficult job, especially if they expect you to be there every single night. And sometimes we try to split that up and say, okay, I'll do it some nights, somebody else does it another night.
Okay.
We would call that a stage manager.
Okay. And
some people call it an assistant director. That we have some directors say that is not a stage manager's job. A stage manager is to kind of do what you said, be backstage or whatever, be part of that. And then the person who's sitting there writing the books and working with the director, that's an assistant director. We hadn't done it that way. Go ahead. You were saying something, Sarah.
Well, I was glad to hear you say, or interested to hear you say that about the producers on being on the board, because that's what we ended up going to. I think it was shortly before COVID, maybe, you lose track of time the last several years, but we were running into the same thing. The producer had to have a significant amount of knowledge about sort of the internal operations of the organization. And we similarly have a very working board. The producer has to do the budget and kind of have an idea of what the historical use of the budget is in terms of how much we generally spend on things. And we just kept running into these issues with people who were not on the board, who just really couldn't manage all the different pieces of being a producer. And as you said, it's a thankless job, and I have done it quite a bit as well. And it's got a lot of moving pieces, and it just started to become too difficult to make sure, because then what you ended up having was someone on the board who was kind of making sure that the person who was the producer was doing what they were supposed to be doing. Right. So it just became kind of inefficient. But I recently had someone really question why we do that. And so I've been thinking about lately, is there something that we could do where there are pieces of being a producer that could be someone on the board? And are there pieces of things that we could have someone do who isn't there all the time?
Right, split off a bit.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
I don't know.
That's a worthwhile discussion because it is such an all-encompassing job. The other part of it is sometimes we adjust with the director. If the director says, what does the stage manager do? We say, this is how we see it. But ultimately, in most cases, what they want to do, we will adjust to. Paul, you mentioned that as well.
Yeah.
So,
and, I think that where it gets complicated for us is that when one of our board members, had the extensive directing in it, and then they want to be in it, and his wife would basically be the director. But we kind of came up with the decision as like, no, who's going to be the stage manager? Who's going to manage, because you're up on stage. And he'd direct, and it'd be funny because I would say, how much sleep you getting? He'd go, one of those people that he'd go on 3 hours of sleep, tech week. But then, I'd say, hey, I yell at him, go get some sleep tonight so you get a good night's sleep because we're counting on you being on the and shows turned out nice.
So here's one of this came up from both of your conversations, Paul. Let me just throw it out here again. I would say the biggest thing that we have, and we have a small town of 12,000, is that we have a kind of a core group. We have a costume mistress, and we have a person who's our props czar. But each show has sub people, people that are going to sew
Yeah.
and people that are going to actually work with this show on props, and that person's the kind of the Uber watch over everything else.
Mhm.
How do you guys? I mean, first of all, Sarah, it just blows my mind that you somehow added up everything to 10 shows. It just, I mean, we do 3 and sometimes 4, and we burn out our people. I
Yeah.
mean, how do you guys not do that, or how do you guys account for that? I mean, you don't have that. Your town's about the same distance from Madison, about
Yeah.
the same size. How do you not burn out people?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and we are definitely at the maximum that we can do, because for exactly what you just said. And we have people say all the time, well, I really like plays, why don't you do another play? Or I
Yeah,
really, we did an outside production in COVID, and people were like, oh, let's do that every summer. And yeah, it's great. I mean, I get excited about projects too, but we do have a core group of people who, I'm sure, like all of your groups, right? There's always a core group of people that are doing the most stuff. And
right.
even when people say, oh, well, I'd love to get involved and do that, I'll come and do that, it takes a lot of people. It's not just one person, right? And so yeah, I mean, we ran into that. Now in the spring, we have in April, we'll have our 2nd through 5th grade and middle school show is one weekend. Then the next weekend, we partner with the rec department to run the dance program. We'll do that dance recital. Then the next weekend is the high school show, and then 2 weekends after that is the senior production. So that burns the core group of us out. By the end of that, we're all like,
Yeah,
forget it, I'm out. So it's a lot, and it's a real concern. And so we've been trying to be more intentional about trying to bring in some more technical people
yeah, us
on
too.
lights and
Boy,
sound, but it's hard. That's a
yeah,
hard niche area.
yeah, yeah, and we're doing the same thing. And one of the things that we've Um, it used to be, and I will throw myself on the fire here for this, is that we had the same person doing costumes all the time, who Paul knows, and this a few years ago, and I thought, this is really unfair, taking advantage of her. It's like no one even asked anybody else to see. So I asked someone else, and to do costuming, and Mary came to me. She said, "What, you don't like what I do?" And it's like,
Oh,
no, I didn't want to take advantage of you. And then I did it one other time where somebody was calling everybody for ushering, and I thought, oh, that's what you have to keep contacting people, and I can't make it and all that. I thought, okay, I'm just going to take that away. So just let her. Very upset. Didn't work with us again. And it's
oh,
like, okay, so now this is what we've switched to. We have these czars. We have a costuming mistress. We have a props guy, which doesn't mean he's going to do props every time, but he's the guy that if we get another person, he has the right of first refusal. So we go to him and we say, do you want to do this show? Do you want to do this show? Do you want to do this show? So we have 3 or 4 people, lighting as well. Is this something you want to play the lead role in? And if not, fine, this is your right of first refusal. Or do you want to just do this piece of it? So now we won't hurt any feelings, and we won't take them for granted. So that's something we just started recently. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
yeah, we do something similar. We have a woman who's in charge of our costume shop. And she's fantastic. And I would love it if she did every show that I worked on. But we do the same thing, and then you kind of go around and see who's
Other
available.
people.
Have a spreadsheet at the beginning of the year and just kind of fill it in. But
Okay.
yeah, it's somewhat similar to what you just talked about.
So um, let's just shift to the booth for a second here. We've talked about stage managing and assistant directing and all those kind of crazy things. What do you call the people who design the lights, run the light board, sound, those kind of tasks? What kind of titles do you use? Paul?
We'll use sound engineer for
Sound engineer. Is that the person who designed the sound, or is that the person who runs the board, or both?
both. Generally, it's both because it's a kind of a technical thing to run a soundboard. They are very wonderful pieces of equipment, but they're getting more and more complicated because there's more
Oh
than
my
just,
God.
hey, turn on the volume. Um, I got to play with the new one at I work at the My Arts Center in downtown Madison. That's where the
Oh yeah,
Children's Theater is,
yeah.
and I worked a week doing sound for them, and it was the. And the last time I did sound like that was for our church like 20 years ago, and it was like, well, amping, adding volume to a mic is the same, but adjusting it, it was all hidden electronically, and it's like my phone, which is smarter than me. But I figured it out and was able to get that done. But they call me a sound engineer, and I think, well, that's what we call it, and we have a lighting
Okay.
tech and
Lighting
a lighting
tech.
designer
So you have a
because
lighting
the
designer and a lighting
designer,
tech. Okay.
well, depending on the show and the the environment, like the Fort Atkinson High School, when we used it, it had a lot of capabilities. And so they could time out the lighting sequence, and somebody would just, all right, hey, you're into this act. The tech had to be there for the show, but then, all right, hey, this song comes on, hit Q3, and the
Right.
next song Q4,
Right.
and so and so much that's dependent upon each show, I would say, because um, we didn't need that elaborate of a setup. We did that for Hello Dolly, but then for when we did Into the Woods, it wasn't as elaborate,
Hmm.
and it was all
So
done by
you
one
run
person.
microphones to all to the key players and at your.
It depends. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
It's very interesting because the guy who normally did sound, Nick Dingman, did it forever, and now his daughter, who goes to high school in Fort, has taken the role over. So
Nice.
yeah, and it's wonderful. She does a wonderful job with it, and
Cool.
she just she's on our board, and she was our student rep, and it's she turned
That's good.
18 now. She's on the board, and it's one of those, like you say, now she's got the right of first refusal, and she's very
That's the way
excited,
we looked at it. So Sarah, you've
and
got different venues and all these different types of production. So how does that work with you? What do you call these people in the booth?
We typically call them lighting designer or sound designer or lighting director or sound director. I think I've seen it both ways on
Yeah,
our
I've seen
stuff,
director
but
used as well.
yeah, but it's the same person. And we because Dale Nichols, who's our board president, has been doing sound for us forever. So he runs the board and designs the sound. And
Okay.
his son Steve actually is our incredibly talented lighting designer, and he
Oh
runs
wow.
runs the board. So they we don't have it. We haven't had to. We've been incredibly lucky to have both of them both design it and run it. So
They run every show?
he does all of our big shows, and then we usually find someone to do the stuff for the kids shows because they're not as elaborate.
Wow.
Um, but yes, he does that, and he's amazing, and we're incredibly lucky. And Dale does every show. He finally just brought in somebody who's doing our 30-minute little kids show to do the sound, but he runs the rest of it. So okay, once in a great while, Steve has needed someone to fill in for him on lights, so he'll design it and they'll come in and just run the board during
Yeah,
it.
and we just got a new light board and it is literally
Click,
that's it. That's it.
click, yeah.
I mean that is literally it. We got I haven't run it yet, but it's as simple as we have a fairly simple setup because of the size of our theater and so forth. And also we don't run any mics. So we have no mics on any actors,
Oh,
which
that's
is
nice.
yeah. And the orchestra is always on stage. We don't have a pit. We had one at first, but when you're in a theater this small, trying to sing over the heads of the people in the pit was just not going to work. So they're always either on stage where you can see them and they're part of the show, or they're backstage off to the side and never a full orchestra because that's not who we are. So, what do you call the people who? I sound like we're in third grade here. What do you call the people who literally take a piece of paper and sit down with the director and design the set? Now, I know some directors have that skill, and they'll come in and have a CAD drawing or whatever. But what about the artist who comes in and designs what it will look like? What do you call that person in your program, Sarah?
We call them set designers, and similar to our lighting and sound. Typically, the set designer is also the person who organizes the people to build the set. So
Oh,
what people would call a construction manager, set construction manager. We
right.
usually have those people do both. Again, we've been lucky enough to have people who were able to do both of those
Mm-hmm.
things.
Okay.
And I think the people who design it have come with a different set of skills. Some people are, designing it on a computer program and, having a CAD drawing, and some people are, sketching it out on a piece of paper. So we've had a wide variety.
Yeah, Paul.
Set designer, and pretty much the same way. We have a person who pretty much is really good and works with the director. And hey, is this what you want? But wonderful at we haven't had any sets fall down, so yay.
Well, we hope
Hey,
when
you
we're
know,
yeah.
into the woods we had a bridge 6.5 feet up, and railings all the way around, and it was impressive because they could walk underneath it, and they had like 10 people on top, and then they had stairs that kind of walked up each side for the princes to sing, which was really cool. But then they had stairs in the back too, so that the
Sure.
actors could leave the stage, and it was pretty elaborate. And
But the person who decides how to build that
Mhm.
seems like the set designer, not the
Right,
artist who designed the painting part of it. Those
right.
seem like two different tasks. Can you not for
I
you
guess
guys?
we have. I guess uh, it really has. It's been a collaboration between the director and our set designer,
Okay, that's fine. That's fair.
and builder. Kathy designs and builds. Hey, this is what I want, and because I helped her a lot. It's the thing I really like doing is building stuff. I don't know why I don't come to Stoughton more often
Yeah,
and do that, but
I'm taking your name down right now, Paul.
you should. You should.
So Sarah,
Absolutely.
same thing with you guys?
Yeah, we have last year we did SpongeBob with our high school show, was our high school show, and it had a significant amount of painting, more than we've usually done.
Sure.
And the set designer and the director really identified that right off the bat. And so they, as part of that set team, brought in people that we referred to as scenic painters, who really
Scenic painters?
painters, yeah, who I would say did more than just the kind of painting that I'm capable of doing, which is painting something black. No design to it at all. And they did a really fantastic job of really, painting in a way that I certainly could never even begin to imagine. So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we've had the need for that, we've tried to go out and find people who were more talented painters than I think. A lot of community theater people, I think you sort of learn certain painting techniques, right, to paint set as you go along. But obviously, especially with a lot of these newer musicals, I think it requires a little bit more talent than the
Yeah.
average
Yeah.
painter.
Well, I mean, this conversation could go on for a long time, and it's not going to go on for a long time because we're going to lose everybody who's watching right now. So actually I learned a lot just listening to you guys talk about what's going on and what your concerns in, and how different it is depending on your spaces and your groups, and how lucky we all are to have people who are devoted and dedicated to us. So now, as we kind of close this up here, and hopefully people watch this and send out their own comments about this, this is the time when we are, as I call it, the unsolicited opinions. Oh, so this is where each of you can go out to our viewers and give them one piece of advice that they need to leave with, that you would recommend, that as they're looking at their groups, their teams, what is it that you want them to think about? Sarah?
I've whenever I see the cast lists of other theaters around town, I'm sure you guys look at that stuff too. I'm always amazed that I look at the cast and I don't know most of the people, right? And I think it just shows how many groups there are in the Dane County and surrounding areas, and how many incredibly talented people there are, tech people, front of house, back of house, on stage, everybody. And so I guess what I would say to people is, be supportive of community theater and the arts in the area in general. And instead of, we all are obviously like our groups and participate with our groups, but I love it when we have all the community theater supporting each other, which is why I think this podcast is a great idea. And so I would really just encourage everybody to really support all of the community theaters in the area by going to see each other's shows and supporting everybody's projects.
Great idea. Paul?
I would say be open to new people, new ideas. In our last couple of productions, we did a kids production, and our director was walking in her neighborhood, and she saw a bear in this guy's garage. Well, she did. He's a professional taxidermist, and they got to talking. And he lent us a tree, and it looked so real. It was just phenomenal. It's like, it's like, did they bring a real tree in here? And that's what he does for a living. He just gave it to us on loan, but we put a little thing in the program that,
Sure.
hey, see Bill's taxidermist, that I thought, wow, that was really kind of outside the box.
Who knew? Yeah.
And then some of the help we get, because you got to always be recruiting help. And I suppose more with the 10 shows you do. But, we have our core group, but you get new people in, and some of them are just wonderful. We had one of our, we had a little Hello Dolly. We were going to have, Dolly ride in on her wagon, opening act. And the cart, one of the wheels fell off, and it collapsed. And it was like, all right, so we did the delay opening. And I kind of like, hey, I knew we had some casters that would work. And by the time I grabbed them out of the back, they looked like an indie pit crew. I mean, there's guys under there with the impact wrenches ripping off the wheels, putting the new ones in. And it was only delayed by 2 minutes, but I'm kind of, and these were the two new guys that we just met 2 days ago. And it was just like, wow. And then, as I got to know them better, and it's like, oh, yeah, I run a mechanic shop. It was nothing. And it's like, oh, wow. I'm Paul, by the way. And so,
yeah.
Just be open. As you say, promote. You want people to come to your shows, but when they do come, hey, as one of our board members said, come and see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good idea. In fact, Paul, you mentioned you didn't want the sets to fall down, but we're doing the play that goes wrong next fall. So if you want to join and help us build the set so that it falls down, you're in. I've got your name down. I'm producing that one. Well, the thing I would say is that maybe we're just overly conscious of it, but it's just be conscious of the needs of those people that are your production team, because you get so involved with this going straight down, and you forget that they have some lives over here, and it can hurt some feelings sometimes, expectations, and you just got to get that all out and make sure that people are doing it. Remember, the people should be doing it for fun. And if it becomes another chore at the end of a day of work or whatever you're doing, it's just not worth it. So we have to we're always talking about that constantly. So I would say just remember that. Ask them, talk to them, make sure they don't have an idea, as Paul said, that you could use. So that's my unsolicited opinion. So lastly, you each get a minute for shameless promotion. So you get to tell us about what's coming up, maybe something you want people to audition for, or just to let us know more about your group. Paul, you're up.
All right. Well, the Fort Atkinson Community Theater just closed out its annual meeting and elected officers. We're actually looking for a director for next summer. So, there's my shameless plug. Come and wow us what you got. We're pretty open-minded. We've done a lot of older shows like Hello Dolly and Music Man, and then Into the Woods and Freaky Friday. So pretty good. You got a good show. Please look us up on the web or on Facebook. And
Great. Yes.
I think that I'm gonna give the rest of my minute to
the rest of your minute.
Verona. Is
Yeah.
there?
You have 9 seconds left. So no, go ahead,
okay,
Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Well, we are having auditions this Friday and Sunday night for a brand new play called The Red Flags, which we're doing. We were selected to be one of the producing theaters for the American Association of Community Theaters new Play Fest.
I saw that.
This is a new playwright. And it's a small show. It's only 4 people. And we're really excited about it. But we definitely could use some more men to come out and audition for it in particular. And it's a play, not a musical, so not as many people are into it. But that's my shameless plug. I'm super excited about it. And I'm directing the middle schoolers in Footloose Youth Edition in a couple weekends. So come on out and see that.
Excellent. Excellent. Men in their 20s. Boy, if we could find those people to come out for shows, that's always the killer. I will just shamelessly plug that our 50th anniversary, which was 2 years ago during COVID, we're celebrating it in the spring with a variety show, and everything in the variety show is anything that was been on our stage in the last 52 years.
Oh, fun.
So somebody's can look and say there was a show in 1983 and it was whatever, Music Man, and I'm going to come up and do Trouble. That is just started. We're just starting to solicit that. They're going to audition in December 10th and 11th, and so that's an invitation. We're also doing a show written by one of our founding members. His brother wrote a New York show called Hamlet the Sequel, which is pretty funny. A very funny kind of Neil Simon-ish show, and that'll be done in February. So we have an extra show this year. And then every Sit in Mai, there's a few of us that write an original show, and we're in the middle of writing that already, so that's coming up. And the play that goes wrong next fall. Can't wait. We've been waiting for it. We got it 3 years ago, and then COVID hit. So we've been. Thank you to you guys. You guys are great. We hope to. We're going to record another one in December, and I got January's all set. What we're going to do in January is have some directors who go to different theaters. Not me directing here at Stoughton or you as Sarah at Verona, but people that go to different places to get their sense of what they're looking for.
Well, that's great.
What they want, what do they expect? So I have 2. I want to get one more slot filled yet of somebody I don't even know, I would hope. So so that's coming up. And then so the big question is, what is our topic for next month? And this is an interesting one. The topic is running a nonprofit theater group organizationally and financially. That's the topic. How are you organized? Does it work? Where are your struggles? That kind of thing. Do you do fundraisers? All of those kinds of things. So that's in December. And so huge thank you to you guys for your time and insight, and for you, the viewers, thank you. Just a reminder to subscribe so you get all the episodes, all 3 of them so far. And please forward the Cast Party link to everybody in your groups, or really anybody that enjoys community theater. That's what it's all about. So I will ask Sarah and Paul to take a bow, and everybody else, have a great show.